So thank you once again for joining us today for the Euroquiz information session for schools. Just first of all, a few words about us and what we do as an organisation. So CILT is Scotland's National Centre for Languages. Our main aim is to support language learning and promote diversity in schools and communities across Scotland. In 2024, CILT took over running the competition, the Euroquiz competition that was previously organised by the Scottish European Educational Trust, also known as SEET. And on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see the Euroquiz team at CILT. So we have Lynn Jones and Karen Foltz, who are our professional development officers. If you want to wave and say hi, that's your turn.
Hi.
We also have Alice Lister, who's our Senior Project and Events Coordinator. Hi, Alice. And you can see myself at the right bottom corner. We are hopefully also joined by a few special guests today. If you are with us today, please let us know in the chat. I'm sure you know who you are. And we will move on to the next slide. So what is Euroquiz? A few words about Euroquiz as a project. So Euroquiz is an annual project for all P6 pupils in Scotland. Teams of 4 work together on topics like languages, history, geography, culture, and European affairs. Local heats run from February to March, with the winners going to the national final in June. So as you might know, if you already participated in Euroquiz or if you're a new one, Euroquiz has 2 core parts, and the first part is the local heats, and then the second part is the national final that usually takes place in Edinburgh in June. And then photos that you can see down at the bottom of this slide were taken at the final events in 2024 and 25 that were organised by CILT. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, why should you take part in Euroquiz? So on this slide, we listed some of the popular reasons that teachers and pupils name as they intake from the project. So we have developed teamwork and collaboration, boost critical thinking, improve confidence in public speaking, enhance knowledge in different subjects, including history, geography, languages and culture, and obviously the most important, having lots of fun about Europe. I am wondering if I'll just quickly have a peek to the chat and see if we have our special guest with us just now. Oh, I can see Jonathan. Hi, Jonathan, if you could just unmute yourself and say hi. So today we
Hello, I'm here. Hi.
Hello, can't see you, but I can hear you well. That's great. So today we have Jonathan with us, who is a local authority coordinator from Renfrewshire. And Jonathan, would you be able to say a few words, maybe motivate teachers to take part in Euroquiz, maybe say a few words about, was it your first time coordinating Euroquiz last year?
Yeah, it was my first time last year. The person that did it before me, I think left the local authority, so I took it over. My day job is digital learning and teaching, so it has absolutely nothing to do with this at all. But it was actually quite nice just to do something that was entirely out with what I would normally do. I would really encourage all of you to take part, not only because it's actually quite a fun thing to do. Lots of our schools in East Renfrewshire, they do clubs during the course of the year to either choose the team or to kind of get the team ready for the heats. And what I decided to do on purpose this last year was to do our local authority heat on the last week that we were allowed to make sure that all the teams had enough time to take part, and also just to allow them to use it as a club as well, because I know a lot of the people that took part were actually part of a club that would take place at lunchtimes too. So it was really fun. We also decided to do it as an in-person event instead of online. Me, with my digital background, I thought that we could just do it online, but actually the feedback from our schools was that face-to-face was much better. And actually, I'm quite glad we did it that way, because it meant that everybody would come together and we all had a nice morning. I think you were there, Alice, weren't you? Andalina was there too,
Yeah.
just to see how it all went. So it was really good. So I think if anyone's thinking about it, if you can get your coordinator to try and do it as an in-person event rather than online, I think the kids, they really like to see each other as well. And it's also nice just to get everybody out of school for a morning as well, and to do the clubs as well. Last thing really is that it's quite nice for schools to take part in something that involves prizes that isn't to do with sports, because I know a lot of kids maybe aren't sporty. I wasn't sporty at school either, so I would have taken part in this instead of the sporty things. So it's quite nice to have that kind of in your head as well, that there might be kids that want to take part and represent your school, but they're not necessarily that sporty, so that might be another option too. As far as the help from the team are concerned, absolutely brilliant. You get all the questions, you get all of the resources and everything to help you to actually run the event. So I would say definitely do it.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you so much. I remember we visited the local heat and Euroquiz authority, and it was just like the atmosphere, because what we wanted to do is we wanted to experience a few different heats, and then both online and in person, and this atmosphere of like pupils being so engaged, so focused onto something. It was just brilliant. It was so good to see, and it was so just brilliant, honestly. And their hard work and the way they were like answering these questions and whispering to each other, what is this answer, what is this answer? It was just brilliant, honestly. Thank you so much. Just one more question. As a coordinator, what did you like the most? Just like personally, did you have anything that you remember the most?
I think maybe the best thing about it was that all of the resources were there. So actually to take part and to organise it, all I really had to do was get a venue, get some drinks and some snacks, and make sure that everyone was able to get there, because everything else was done for you by the team. So I think that's a good way to think about it too, that actually all of the resources are there. Everything that you're ever likely to need is there too. So actually to run a club in a school would be really easy, because you've got all of the past years questions, which helps as well. So yeah, all of that is kind of all done by the team. So yeah.
Thank you so much for this. Resources is something that we will speak about a bit later. So if you are the teacher and you're interested in Euroquiz resources, this is a spoiler for you. It will be a bit soon. I can see that we have our second special. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you for your time. I can also see in the chat that we have our second special guest, in school. If you are here, please unmute yourself, because I'm thinking we might have spoken to a different teacher. So I'm wondering if that's the person from Aberdeenshire in primary.
Hi.
Oh, hi. I can't see you. I can see you now. Oh, that's brilliant. Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us today. So today we also have with us the actual participants of last year's Euroquiz final. So you are now in your P7 year, is that correct? You just started your P7. Oh, that's brilliant. Would you like to say a few words? Would you like to share a few words? Because this video will be later shared with schools and teachers all over Scotland. So then you have a chance to share with other pupils and teachers your experience of Euroquiz. Maybe something that you took or you liked the most. Whoever wants to go first.
So it meant that if I was at home and I had something, I don't know what I could do, I could just go and look at some Europe stuff. And it was quite interesting to see the history. I particularly liked about Pompeii and how it got covered, and it stayed covered for ages. Also, it was quite fun getting out of class, having a bit of time to just play Europe games, learn more about Europe, find about the history of the place where we sort of live.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. Anyone else wants to share their experience?
So I really liked Euroquiz, and I think it definitely helped my confidence in class when answering questions about Europe. And I also really enjoyed doing flags and languages and stuff. That was definitely some of my favourites. Because I've been wanting to learn like certain languages for ages, and I've got a chance to take a little like sneak peek into what they are.
Thank you. Do you feel like you took that knowledge that you got in Euroquiz, obviously when you were P6, into P7 just now? Do you think you kind of got that knowledge together with you and moved on into next year of school?
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Who's brave? Who's feeling brave to be next and share your experience?
I enjoyed meeting other schools.
With the final.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Did you-
these
Yeah.
children are going to be supporting this year's primary 6 Euroquiz team, and I think that's really wonderful. The team last year, the P7s, who were the P6s before, they came along and supported the P6s learning with Euroquiz, and just the way they collaborated and just worked together was just wonderful.
That's so brilliant to know. So would that mean that you have club where they can share their experience, or is it some kind of a meeting? How's that working in your school?
So we meet for 1 hour in the week. So during their class time, we come together for an hour, and we use the online resource materials, and the children decide themselves, right, next week, what we're going to be learning. And the children will say, oh, I want to learn about currencies, or I want to learn about foods. It's very much them being leaders in their own learning of Euroquiz. And the P7s who were the P6 team a previous year, they will sometimes come along and help, and we use the past papers, and we split them up into like either a mixture of P6s and P7s competing against each other with the past questions. We found that really fun, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The resources on the page are definitely really good as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's so lovely to know that you enjoy it, and it's so brilliant to see how P7 now engages with P6, so different ages, but they still work together on that topic and interacting with each other. So it's just brilliant to know. Thank you so much. If you want to say a few more words, you're very welcome. Otherwise, we're moving on to the next slide. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us today and finding the time. Absolutely. Okay, in this case, we're moving on to the next slide.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So we are talking about Euroquiz 2026 and specifically the timeline. So here are just a few dates to highlight. So we have October 25 to January 26. So this is the time when schools register with local authorities for local heats. Please bear in mind that dates will vary depending on the local authority. However, you can roughly estimate that this is the timeline when you should be able to register. One more thing is that you register with your local authority coordinators. If for some reason you don't know the email address of, or you don't know the name, or you don't know contact details of your local authority coordinator, please get in touch with us and we will hopefully be able to guide you on that. Otherwise, please get in touch with your local authority coordinators and ask them for the information and registrations and all of that. They should be able to provide you with all of the information. So 29th of January to 31st of March. So this is the time when heat takes place. Again, the actual date of the heat will be different depending on your local authority, and your coordinators will be able to advise you on the actual date in your area. But this is the rough time frame that you should be looking at. And obviously, we have a confirmed date for the final event, which will take place in McEwen Hall. Amazing, just absolutely adore this venue. Amazing, lovely venue in Edinburgh. And it will be the 12th of June on Friday. Also, you can see some pictures down at the bottom of this slide that were taken at the McEwen Hall, and it's part of the Edinburgh University. So it's just an amazing occasion, and I'm sure all the kids, we always get the feedback from kids that they just love this venue. Following up on to the next steps. So what are your next steps? Obviously, your next step is to complete the registration form received from your local authority. If you haven't received the form yet, please get in touch with your coordinator. Your next step would be prepare for local heat and explore the resources. We will speak about resources just in a wee moment, but continuing to the steps, your next steps would be participating in the local heat and hopefully winning. We wish luck to everyone and attending the final event. And now we are moving on to the promised resources. My lovely colleagues Lynn and Karen will just talk you through all of that. And I'm just forwarding the microphone to you and muting myself.
Thank you, Alina. So we've got a few updates. There may be people on the call who've been participating before, and even if you haven't, this is useful information of little tweaks, because last year was the first year that SILT had complete responsibility for writing and setting the questions, as well as the other organisational parts of it. So we had some feedback and we've taken notice of what you said. So one of the first things you said was that the questions were very hard. So we've taken that on board, and we have kept our expectations high regarding the caliber of the questions. But what we're going to do, Karen and myself, in the next couple of minutes, we're going to give you much more focused guidance on how the questions are created, what resources where you might find the types of answers that fit in particular question rounds of the questions, if that makes sense, and basically how your Pre-6 quizzes can be prepared to the very max going forward. So you said that's what we've done in response. Hopefully it'll work out. Alina, what's our next one? You thought it was maybe a bit unfair to have questions that needed more than one answer to earn a single point. And yeah, okay, we agree with you there. So we're not doing that anymore. So there will always be a question where you just have one answer. There might be questions where there are more than one possible answers, but as long as you get one of those possible answers, you get a point. You don't need to get all of the possible answers. You just need to get one of them. Okay, so we've cut that out. The languages round, people thought was maybe a bit long. So yes, we have made changes there that mean that it should be shorter going forward. So there's smaller number of questions. There will be, I think I've got it on the next slide, so I don't want to say in case I get myself muddled, but just suffice to say there's fewer questions, so the language round shouldn't take so long. And the other change was slightly making to the languages round in terms of the presentation of it. Rather than having to listen to everything in one language at a time, the question will be read in each of the 4 languages, and then it'll be read again in each of the 4 languages. So if your language is, I don't know, is it usually Italian maybe that's last, or I don't know, whichever one is at the end of the has been at the end of the language round, you don't have to wait right till the end to get your first hear of it. I don't know if I've explained that very well. I should have waited, shouldn't I? Okay, last one. Please include more questions about the UK and the 4 home nations. That was really easy to do. So we have included more questions about the United Kingdom and the 4 home nations, Scotland, England, Ireland and Wales. Maybe there's a wee bit more about them in, because after all, we're part of Europe, the continent of Europe. So there, I think that covers what the you said and we did. So we can move on to the next bit. And Karen, I think you're picking up on this to start with.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. And it's just what you were saying there about learning a wee bit more about our home nations. And I think one of the wee ones that spoke from Inch's school there had said it's been quite interesting learning more about where we live. So I'm all very excited already for Euroquiz kicking off, but preparation is key. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And I have prepared a team for Euroquiz as well. I did it when I was teaching back a good few years ago, so I know what it's like, and I know how important it is to get your team well and truly prepared. We have had a few suggestions of what people are already doing to get everyone prepared to take part in the competition, and setting up clubs is absolutely the way to go, and it's what I did myself. It wasn't just me, I worked with a colleague as well in school, but we finally got our core team. I think we did some things in school, lots of different, first of all, we put the call out who would like to be involved in this, but we did have to sort of whittle it down to get our core team, to get our 5 members. And once we had the group of 5, we worked with our team on a weekly basis, at the least actually. I'm sure we had more sessions at lunchtime, because the more they got into it, the more they wanted to be fully prepared. So we had our club all set up, and then what we did was we spoke to our team members, and we asked them what their interests were, and we sort of divvied up the research and the revision actually into, like, okay, well, such and such was really keen on sport, so that person was responsible for doing all the sport research. Somebody was really interested in geography and flags and cities and countries, and they were responsible for doing all of that research. So we organised all of the research, again using the resources that were available to us, you know, the past papers and all of the materials that were there at the time, so that we were fully prepared, because there's nothing worse, and you know yourself, if you've not prepared for an exam and you go into it and you don't know, there's nothing worse. It's a horrible feeling. So I think the idea is really to get the children as prepared as they can to go into the competition that they're going to be taking part in. And as Lynn had said, we've been quite mindful of the feedback that we've had, and we've done a lot of work so that we can help you prepare the kids to do that, in terms of the resources to have a look at. And I know Lynn has done a sterling job in collating resources, and it's worth seeing every question that we've got on the heats and the final are all drawn from these resources. So I know, Lynn, would you like to just maybe expand a wee bit on that?
Yeah, certainly. Do you know,
Please,
first thing I'm going to do is actually post in the chat the direct link to the Euroquiz resource page where you'll find all this stuff, because I'm going to talk through it a little bit just now. So just to say that you'll be looking at, if you're managing to kind of access that link. Sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once now. I should go to that link there. There you go. There's in the grey part at the bottom of the that web page, there's what we call an accordion, and it's got several sections. So we're looking at the resources section of that. That's what I'm going to talk about now. So if you're looking at that now, or if you want to look at that later, then that's where you'll find it, is using that link, and you scroll down to the bottom and open up the resources section, and you can see that it's organized. The resources are organized by what round they kind of are most pertinent to. There's a bit of overlap, so that'll be noted beside it as well. But certainly, just for clarity's sake, because especially if you're divvying things up amongst people with particular interests, round 1, I think we've mentioned this already, is it's still geography and history like it always was. There's 15 questions in the heat. The questions may include topics such as flags, borders, geographical features, landmarks, notable historical events like Pompeii, people, historical people, things like that. So that's what round 1 is focusing on. I'll come back to round 2 because there's been some changes there that kind of merit a bit of a focus. But round 3, we're calling that now Understanding European Cultures. So the questions around that might reference art, gastronomy and cuisine, traditions, music, and also give you pupils an opportunity to learn about the similarities and differences between countries, which is a thing which sounds like people quite like about Euroquiz. And then round 4, this is where we've maybe put a bit more of a specific focus, because there was general knowledge, but we've taken it down a particular route. We're calling it European affairs. So this might seem slightly different if you've done Euroquiz before, but only in terms of it being a bit more focused and on things like businesses, institutions. This is where your currencies will come in, your basic information about political representation, which sounds quite fancy, but we're talking about parliament buildings and things like that, and significant recent events in Europe and the continent of Europe. Okay. And if it comes to, just so that you know, if there are any tiebreakers that you need for the heats, then those are going to be a mix of all of those things at the same time. Okay. You might, in the European affairs one, there might be questions about languages, not in other languages, but about other languages that are used in European countries, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's all part of round 1, 3, or 4. So if we think about round 2 now, as I say, we've shortened this so it's small, shouldn't take so long. So for clarity, just to be clear, the language round will still feature the same languages: German, Spanish, Italian, and French. There will be 6 listening comprehension questions. There will be a short reading comprehension text that's followed by 4 questions. And there you go. Other things that might be useful for you to know in preparing for these particularly round 2, the listening comprehension questions usually refer to a Europe-wide celebration or achievement of some sort. So we might speak about be visiting the European capital of culture, or one of the European cities of sport, or one of the European green cities, or the host place for the Eurovision Song Contest, or something like that. Okay. We've put on the website, we've made a note of some useful target vocabulary for this heats, and also we've given a little of a hint for the finals as well. So for the heats at this stage, we're saying that in your German, Spanish, Italian, or French, it's probably going to be quite useful if you practice your personal language. So, you know, talking about yourself, name, family, that kind of thing. Also useful would be the weather vocabulary, nationalities and countries, buildings around town. That's always a useful one in this round, and particularly this time round, family members and fruit. Seems like a random connection of things, but I promise you there is it does make sense for that round for the heat. Okay. There's also clues there for the final, but that's later down the line, so you can always come back to the page and just check in. And Alina, I think I'm right in saying that you'll be sharing a vocabulary sheet that you've prepared that will give you an even tighter steer on some specific vocabulary in the German, Spanish, Italian, and French that would help you in that regard as well. Okay. So I'm going to pass back to Karen to say a little bit more about past questions, but I'm hoping that's Clara signposted some resources and you know where to find them now. Thanks very much. Karen, over to you.
Thanks, Lynn. And just where you are on the accordion, you'll find there that the past questions are available for you to use, again, in preparation for the quiz. And I really like the idea of Inchi's I've written down here Euroquiz ambassadors, because you guys are now the Euroquiz ambassadors. How cool is that? And you're going to be supporting your friends that are in primary 6 as they embark on their learning journey. And I like the idea of the pupils are leaders of their own learning. I think that's a nice way of looking at it as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. So yeah, the practice papers are there for you to have a look at, and we would urge you to use them, because you see the types of questions that are there, because the questions aren't all single answer questions. We've got multiple choice, we've got true or false, we've got picture questions, and we always like to try and include a wide variety of types of questions. So I think if you're using the past papers, they will help you get into that sort of way of thinking of how the questions look, and get a feel for them and get a feel for the types of things that we are asking. And as Lynn had said, the resources that the questions are drawn from are there for you. So I suppose the only thing that, I mean, there's nothing really else that I can say that apart from just use what's there, and make sure that you're giving the kids enough time. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of my team did go away and do things out with school time as well. They were practicing things at night at home, because they were so keen to, they'd caught the Euroquiz bug basically, and they were just so keen to learn more. Their thirst for knowledge was quite insatiable at times, actually. So yeah, just use what's there, and we look forward to hearing how your teams all get on, and hopefully we'll look forward to meeting you in the finals. So that's really all I've got to say in terms of the past questions. So I'll pass over to you, Alina.
Thank you so much. That was insightful. Honestly, I thought, like, I knew all of this information, but even myself knowing that, I thought, oh, that's actually insightful. So thank you so much. Thank you both. And actually, we made it all the way to the final section of our presentation. So thank you everyone one more time for attending this presentation. I will stop the recording just now, and you will have a chance to unmute yourself, or probably better to pop your questions into the chat, just because minding how many of us are here,